KOERLP 101.5 FM, Cypress, Texas.
The audio and all other media materials aired on this broadcast station does not necessarily reflect the opinion of the management of Rhema Word Broadcasting, Rhema Gospel Radio Incorporated, KOERLP FM, its affiliates, and or the staff and volunteers of these entities. Please direct all correspondence to the appropriate company's website and or business address. Welcome to the Parenting Connections radio broadcast with Dr. Tyra Hodge. Dr. Hodge is an author, speaker, the founder and president of Parenting Connections, whose mission is to strengthen families. She has been an educator for over 15 years, and Parenting Connections is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Now, let's join Dr. Tyra Hodge for today's radio broadcast.
Hello. I got a great show for you today. We have in the house Melissa Martin, and we also have Chari Burnett. Both of these ladies are educators, and one of them, both I know personally. I've done some work with both of them in different situations. And so I have Melissa Martin. She's going to say hi to you in a second. And I want her to tell you what she does. Actually, she sits on a board of a new teachers organization that I am very excited about. Hey, Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I didn't know that I was going to be on video. So I hope I have enough mascara on for y'all. I had to rush in there and put a little bit on. Can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm really excited about being on your show with you because I'm super excited about letting everybody know about the new teacher organization, Innovative Teachers of Texas, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that we exist, and it gives us an alternative to some of the other teacher organizations that might not really fit with our values. Yeah.
Right. And so, Chari, let me introduce you. First, let me introduce you to Melissa. Thank you for being on the show. Chari, thank you for being on the show.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Oh, no claps. It's not good? Okay, I'm going to have Melissa, go ahead and call in for me.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and call in.
Did you send me a number?
Yes, I texted it to you.
Okay, I'll do it now.
Thank you. Okay, so anyway, Chari. So you and I go way back.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tara. It's so good to see you. It really is.
Thank you. Yes. So Chari and I have been in the trenches together.
Yes, we have.
We have been in the trenches. And so when I do trainings, I train teachers from time to time, or I have in the past, about how to keep themselves safe from students that might be out of control in their body, that, the ones that toss chairs and kick you and hit and spit. Mm-hmm. There was this one year. Welcome back, Melissa. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so there was this one year where we were dealing with this cute little guy that kept punching us, but apparently he had some boxing experience.
Yes,
and he was bobbing and weaving on us. And so I always tell that story when I do this training. So anyway.
He was bobbing and weaving. The interesting thing is, first I want to say that Tara and I we do go way back. My name actually is Shara, but Tara calls me Chari because people in my family call me Chari. So actually it's Chari Burnett, but because we're family, it's Chari. She calls me Chari. So just letting everyone know. But yeah, the bobbing and weaving was something that I think was something that you used to always joke about with me, and it made that difficult situation lighter.
So it did. We've definitely been in the trenches. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Melissa. Melissa, how are you again? Thank you and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I'm doing well, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you guys today. So, and hopefully I have an opportunity to talk to y'all about the organization so that people will know what's available.
We definitely want you to talk about the organization, because this is the thing that I've noticed throughout the years. I've paid teacher fees. I didn't this past year, but I paid teacher fees for about 14 years. I paid for 14 years. And the thing is that they would be down there in Austin rallying for stuff that I didn't agree with. And so as a Christian, what do you do? Because you need the protection. You want to be able to have that lawyer. You know, people always say that it's hard for teachers to get fired. Do you agree, Chari?
I do agree. Yes, it is.
And so they say it's hard for teachers to get fired. And it's usually because we have a teacher organization standing behind us. And so if we're, you know, something is sounding fishy at work or whatever, we call these people up. And then they usually come running a lot of times.
Yeah,
Most of the good ones, they come running. But then I have to go back to some of them, not all of them, but some of them are trying to put, you know, homosexual sex stuff in schools where, you know, with our little ones, and they don't need that yet. They don't need that. And so tell me about your organization, Melissa, that you're involved with. Do you sit on the board, or what's your position there?
I do. I serve on the board officially as the treasurer, but I've also become kind of the spokesperson because, you know, and I joke with them and I say, you always pick the one that sounds the most like a hillbilly. I don't know why exactly you do that, but I've been the one that's kind of, you know, done these interviews to try to get the word out. But our organization was formed because there were a group of us that we had just become discontent with some of the things that the other teacher organizations were standing for. And it's interesting because just recently, with some of the things that organizations are standing for, our membership has grown substantially.
Wow.
So it's pretty exciting because, you know, a lot of people, for one, didn't know that we existed, and there still are a lot of people that aren't aware that they have an alternative. But we just this summer actually got the legal liability insurance, and so now when you become a member, there's a $3 million liability insurance that comes with that. And the nice things are our dues are actually less expensive than the other organizations, but our dues will never go toward Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
And, you know, where some of the other organizations that affiliate, especially with NEA, and I'm not wanting to call out anybody specifically, but, you know, NEA is a national organization, and, you know, there are a lot of teachers that are just uninterested in having their dues go toward Planned Parenthood. And now we see some of those organizations, the teacher unions across the country who are demanding things like defunding the police. Some of the things that we're just kind of like, because, you know, my concern is, I think that our SROs on campus are actually very valuable. So, it you know, kind of sometimes can contradict some of our values, but, you know, it's, what we really say is that we just promote traditional Texas values. Mm-hmm. We're not interested in having, you know, things come into the classroom that, maybe isn't in line with what some teachers and parents really are comfortable with. So that's our main goal is we want to provide teachers with the professional liability insurance. We want them to be recognized and treated like individual professionals. And we want them to have the ability to network and feel like they have a voice independently and, you know, not just speak up and say, this is how all teachers feel. You know, we want them to have an independent voice.
Right. And what I have recognized is that even though we don't say it out loud, there are a lot of teachers that have some of the same values that I have. And, you know, we don't say a lot because nobody wants to get shunned. And, you know, there's a lot of shaming for those that have values that are kind of biblically set right now. If you have shared those values, they're calling us either racist or bigot, fascist, and they're calling it hate speech when really it's our right to believe, you know, what our God and our founding fathers have set in place for us. And so, you know, there's a big attack. There's a big indoctrination, not so much in the school districts that I've worked for, because I kind of look at that before I would go. And not that I've worked for a whole lot of school districts, but I'm definitely, that's something that I look at. I've learned that you don't just get interviewed, you interview the schools as well.
Right.
I've learned that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as now, I mean, how many members do you think that your organization has now?
Well, I haven't looked today, but it truly has more than doubled just over the past maybe 2 weeks. It seems like one of the things that has it seems like one of the things that has kind of brought some people away away from the other organizations was the position that they were taking on opening schools. There were a lot of people that were upset that all the teacher organizations seemed to have a real push to go to 100% virtual instruction, across the whole state. And it didn't seem to want to give a lot of control to local districts.
That's kind of part of the indoctrination. The media is there to scare the heck out of people, and people are scared because that's what they see. And if you're being told this propaganda over and over and over again, you start repeating it. And not just that, you start believing it. And unless you look outside those sources and see what other people are saying, you begin to believe it. So what it is that you have teachers that are scared to death of getting sick and feeling like nobody cares about their well-being. Mm-hmm. But then when you actually really look at the numbers, you're talking about 1 in a million people, 1 in a million, but that's not what the media tells you, and so they're scared, so I get it.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah. It seems like a lot of times the information that we're given on the news is skewed and the information isn't as accurate as we need it to be. And so those decisions are made based on the information that, it's in the media. And the hard part for those of us in education and parents as well is that we're limited with information they're giving us. And so when those decisions are made, it feeds into that fear, because that's all we see on television is the fear and the what ifs and the information that makes us feel terror instead of being able to make decisions based on accurate data and information that's true.
And parents, a good parent is going to protect their child no matter what. Now, I can say for me, I told my kids they're going to school. they are not staying home, because let me tell you, trying to teach kids at home, that was a whole nother animal. And that was something that, I don't wish on it, and I'm a teacher. That's horrible. But it was
understandable.
But, trying to get that, if, they've been in public school their whole life.
Right.
And it was funny because I've actually wanted to be able to homeschool my kids, but probably when they were younger and I knew how to do the math. I don't know nothing about no high school math.
I'm done.
Special ed all the time. And so, so Melissa, what you're saying is, or I think I hear you saying, is that y'all had an increase of enrollment once teachers were being forced to go back to school. Is that correct?
Well, no. It actually seems like a lot of the teachers that have joined our organizations are the ones that are sort of frustrated that officials are telling schools what they have to do instead of allowing schools to do what their parents and teachers. So what our organization is advocating for is not for every school to have to open, but what we're advocating for is local control. We want school districts to be able to make the decision in collaboration with teachers and parents, and what's best for their community, rather than, what's politically driven. What you were just talking about with what's in the media. Well, the media, what they do is they want us to feel more fearful, because that causes us to tune in more. And so, we see that down here in Southeast Texas when a hurricane's blowing in, and they sensationalize it because they want us to be glued to the TV.
That's true. That's so true.
I mean, we see that all the time. And so the more fear they can produce, well, then it causes us to feel the need to tune in more. So it really just, I believe that it's driven a lot by fear, but I think the political.
But that's kind of part of the Marxist. You produce fear in people, and then people are willing to give up their rights.
Correct. And as I've stepped back and I've watched a couple of different groups, interact on, really on Facebook. There's a couple of different groups that I've been watching, and it seems like there are different groups. You might hear my granddaughter screaming in the background. So if you hear a kid screaming, that's what that is. But
you're not beating them.
I'm not. Her mama might be in the other room, but it's funny. But no. So I've noticed that there's a few different groups of teachers that are reacting out of fear. Some of them, they're older, or maybe they have.
Okay, they will get sick. That is true.
And they have a legitimate concern. They have a legitimate fear, and I feel like we need to be sensitive to that group. Well, there's others. For instance, I teach with someone. He's awesome. His wife though is battling cancer, and they're not an older couple, but I know that they're really struggling. And I haven't talked to him specifically, but he's been on my heart, my mind a lot, because these are people that also go to church with us. And just knowing that he's possibly concerned, and maybe he's not, I don't know, but he's one that pops into my head that, someone who might be a little fearful of bringing something home to his wife because maybe her immune system is compromised right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. See, that's a different story, because I do understand is that if they have a existing anything to do with the heart or something like that, they will die, it'll kill them, that's without faith, but
that's more dangerous. And so, I feel like we truly do need to be sensitive to that group. Now, I do want to say one thing, because, I've heard people make comments about, okay, well, if districts are choosing to have online instruction and face-to-face, and the parents get to decide, well, then maybe those teachers, the older teachers, or the ones with the compromised immune systems, maybe they could be the ones that are in charge of virtual instruction.
Oh, that's good.
Well, it is, except if they've not been keeping up with technology, and maybe they've been kind of resistant, to learning more. Well, then that doesn't really put them in a position where they're going to really meet the needs of those kiddos that are at home learning virtually. So I really want to encourage all of our colleagues right now to make sure, because we don't know what direction everything is going in. So I want to encourage all of our colleagues to be open-minded and really, learn as much as they can about, different apps and just different things. That way, if you
it should be non-negotiable. I mean, if that's part of your job and they're still sending you a paycheck and you need to learn some software, you need to learn some software.
I totally agree with that.
I would go above and beyond at this point. If I was in a position where I wanted to be able to approach my principal and say, hey, I really would like to be considered to be the one in charge virtually, and this is what I've done to make sure I'm prepared for that, because I want to meet the needs of my students. And, so that's what I really want to encourage is to go above and beyond, to really be prepared so that you can, almost sell yourself almost like an interview.
Yeah, I agree with that. On top of, to kind of add to that would be some teachers that do have a huge learning curve with technology. Some older teachers, yes, I'm not the older one, but I've had some issues and things I need to learn. But the districts do provide training, and also teachers also pair with other teachers that are technologically savvy, and they act to jump in it, because honestly, I do believe the teaching profession itself let me say it this way: teachers are a different breed, and when it comes down to learning new technology and learning new ways to present instruction, I would like to say that we're that group that would jump into that and would do what it takes to learn it, especially if you're motivated because you have a person at home that may be, as this gentleman you mentioned, that may be ill, or you need to have maybe priority choices to be the virtual teacher. I do believe that those teachers would come to, meet that learning curve and be able to provide that instruction, because actually the way that we're going now, it's better to learn all those types of ways to present instructions right now anyway, because technology is a great way to enhance the way we learn, because everyone's on the cell phone, everyone's on the computer,
I mean, I would look at it like this too. If it only costs $1,000 for a year for that student to use a computer program, and you're getting paid, $50,000-$60,000 a year, and you're unable to help your student, you've really become useless.
Yeah, you're right.
You've become useless, and I want to be sensitive. I do understand, but if we can't do these things, and I know how hard it was to get in touch with my students when it first happened, because it really was kind of a shock to our system. It was a whole new, it was tough because I couldn't find some of my students.
Right. And it's really about motivation. I think it's about motivation. I mean,
we were scared. We were, and so now going back in this year, we kind of know what's expected if you're having to do. I know my kids have to start off doing remote learning, and then hopefully they'll be going back to school September 8th. And so I know now that I have to go buy some computers. We can borrow some from the school, but I don't want to. But I think it's probably better for us to buy our own Chromebooks so they can have them. My last child is entering high school, and so she's going to have to learn how to write papers and stuff that she just loves not to do. And so I want to read. Do you have any questions for Melissa?
Just really how if someone's interested in finding more about your organization, how can they do that?
Well, if they log on and look us up on the website ittexas.org, then that will take them to our mission statement. You can look up who the board members are. You can also see what comes with membership as far as the professional liability insurance and the identity theft insurance, which I'm not sure if other organizations have that, but we do. I think it's $10,000. So I think that was just kind of a little added extra. And so, if they want to join, then, they can also, I think that there's a link where they can submit questions or reach out and connect with us so that we can answer questions for them. So that's really, and there is a Facebook page also for Innovative Teachers of Texas. They can.
It's Innovative Teachers of Texas.
Yes.
Okay, so I will have that. I'm not going to say tonight, but probably by sometime tomorrow, I will have that information and links in the description box on YouTube, most likely on Facebook. It won't be on Periscope. I'm sorry. You'll be able to find that on YouTube on Dr. Tyra Hodge page and Tyra Hodge PhD. All those links will be from Melissa. We'll have those links placed in there later on, maybe later on this evening, or if not first thing in the morning.
Okay, I have one more question. Is there an enrollment period, or can you start in the middle of the year? How does that work?
Good question.
That's a great question. Most people have been starting, like in August, because the dues are actually $120. But if they go ahead and get signed up, then they can, sign up to pay $10 a month. So it's less expensive than the other organizations. So
can you do that payroll deduction with that?
Well, that's going to have to be, since we're a newer organization, then, we still have to get the letters out to districts, because even a lot of districts, the ESCs are not necessarily aware that we exist yet. Although they do, based on our status, they do have to give us, the same. Technically, they're supposed to do that. They just don't all know that we exist.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm hoping that some more people see this today, and I'm hoping that, because it's a good thing for teachers that have, or that feel a certain type of way about the values of what their teacher organization is up there doing in Austin, things that actually really matter, that are protecting the psyche of our kids. And so I'm gonna switch streams real quick. And Melissa, I hope you can stay on, because I really want you to be involved in this next conversation. We're about halfway
Sure.
done. And so I want to talk about what's going to happen for the kiddos that are going back to school, because some districts or some cities in Texas didn't really have any corona outbreaks. And so they should be going back. And I can't remember the cities right now. Melissa, do you know of any of the cities that, not so much Texas, I'm talking about in other states, that that didn't have like wild, crazy outbreaks? We know that New York and that they New Jersey was hit real hard. So with the students being home, we do know this. We do know that abuse went up.
Absolutely.
Domestic violence. We know that there were possibly, or we don't know, but I can only assume that some kids were hungry, because sometimes the only meals they have are the ones that they get at school.
Right.
And so, and for a while, I think a lot of school districts were giving out food. And then I think that stopped at some point.
At some point it did, yes.
Maybe for some school districts. And so Sherry, hopefully she's going to be with us from time to time. She is my Dr. Phil. Shara is a behavior specialist. And she deals with students that have emotional issues that are kind of hard, that stop them from learning. And I do the same thing. And I've done the same thing as well for many years. My title this year will be a little different. But students may come in looking a little different this year, Melissa. How, as teachers, and I don't want this to be a roundtable discussion, and so I want you both to respond about what are we going to do as educators to help support our students?
That's a really tough question, and I think it's multi-pronged. I was talking to actually one of the LSSPs today, and he mentioned adding into safety plans some COVID-19 strategies, and then to serve as antecedents, so that students will be able to come back to school and feel a little bit more comfortable, as well as teachers being able to observe when their behavior changes, so that they can kind of stop some of those anxious moments. Or
so you and I are actually trained to watch behavior.
Yes.
And then we get paid to watch your behavior, so we can know, so we can eliminate anything from happening, so we can make you feel safe.
Right.
And so,
let me explain what that really means.
Okay.
So
thanks.
one of the things that Tara and I used to do when we worked together was when she said watch, when she spoke about watching behavior, it's first you have to know the student. And then you start watching their behavior, and you can tell by subtleties if they're, for instance, if a student may always look up and they're looking down a little bit, or maybe they're kind of fidgety, or maybe they're quiet, or maybe just any subtle change you notice. Those are the things that you watch for. And then later, as you know that student, you'll see what that behavior leads to, because that behavior could lead to an outburst of verbal aggression or an outburst of physical aggression. Just depends on that student. And so what we do initially is we observe that kid, and we discuss what those initial behaviors look like to other teachers, so that they can make decisions on how they deal with that kid. So let's say if it's a kid that always, is that kid that eats the teacher's lunch every day. So the kid comes in, he could be upset. The teacher, once we teach that teacher what to look for, instead of her jumping on them, which is going to cause a reaction that they're not going to want, that teacher will learn to now be a little bit more softer. He or she may learn to approach that student in a more calmer way, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, y'all, we have our behavior specialist in the house. She is our Parenting Connections behavior specialist. So if you have any questions for Shara or Melissa, go ahead and post them in the comments so we can see them. This is your time to post questions. Melissa, do you have any thing to say to that?
Well, I wanted to kind of add on that too, because, both of you specialize with the kiddos that have behavior issues and usually have the BIP, the behavior intervention plans, right?
Right.
So, I have the kiddos that are in the general education. And sometimes I will have, the names tend to change, either, the past students or, those kiddos that have a behavior intervention plan. But for the most part, my kids are the general education kids that are able to navigate through their emotions and learn, they've learned how to react appropriately, either with their language or, physically. But we still, I have a serious concern for the mental health of our students right now. And that's across the board, because I have a daughter that's going into her senior year, and she's spoiled rotten. And, and I'm here with her, and she and I are very close, and she doesn't have any emotional issues. She's a gifted kid, super smart. But I also know that she's really struggling emotionally because, she was just telling me yesterday that she's upset because, her senior year, that experience is being taken away from her by people that are in charge who are, she feels like she's being robbed of that experience. She's in drumline for marching band. She's been doing that since 6th grade, and now here she's, has the opportunity, to do that as a senior. And we don't know what that's going to look like for her. And so, a lot of kids, even in that situation, who don't have some kind of underlying problems, well, those things are kind of bubbling up. So we have that issue. But then we also have, the ones that right now I'm very concerned about our kiddos that, are isolated at home, because we have some that do suffer from mental health issues already. And now this is just, going to really magnify those. And we don't have them in the classroom to be able to keep an eye on what's going on. They're the ones that I'm actually most concerned about because they're going to be more isolated, just like they've been since March. And then obviously we have the ones that are being neglected or abused at home, and we don't see those kiddos to be able to provide them with any kind of help. They're not finding sanctuary at school. And I think that so many people are just completely overlooking that and just kind of, tisk whatever, and, acting like, oh, that's, no big deal. But then I see in the arguments where teachers are like, oh, we got to keep the kids safe. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what data are you looking at? I mean, are we in a different, are we in, alternate universes? Because that's not at all the data that I'm seeing. Right. Now, if you're wanting to argue, for the safety and well-being of teachers, I can understand that a little bit more. But, I have a good friend of mine that's on the other side of Houston. Her daughter just graduated from A&M, just got her first teaching position. So here she's 22, 23 years old. She doesn't live with elderly parents. She doesn't have anyone around her with a compromised immune system. So when I asked her, are you excited about going back to school? She told me, she said, well, I am worried about, maybe, getting sick or my kids. And I'm like, good grief. Have you only been getting your news from TikTok? I'm a little bit frustrated.
That's funny because, I think if my data is correct, there's only been one minor that has died. You're talking about billions of people. Well, as far as say, I think a few have gotten sick maybe, but only one person has died. And I'd probably bet money that they had a pre-existing, because that person with the motorcycle that got killed on the motorcycle, they tagged that COVID. So,
and that's what's made it so hard to trust the data that's coming out because, and some of us, I'm not looking at it as some kind of conspiracy. I know the virus exists, and I do believe that it can be very serious for certain people.
Right.
I've been concerned about my parents, and I've been concerned about my in-laws. Because my in-laws, especially, being diabetic and having some other underlying health conditions. And, it's concerning. But for teachers that, are in their 20s or and 30s, and, I'm in my 40s.
Even if they get it, they may not even know it.
Exactly. Or if, and there are some therapeutics out there, so it's just kind of interesting to me to watch the different arguments because, even with the people that get seriously ill from flu and the people that die, and I'm not saying that they're comparable, but there are some similarities. And there's even a vaccine for flu, and people are still dying from flu.
Right.
And so, it's kind of, to me, I'm just really frustrated because I look at the mental health issues that our students are facing, and I think that.
And we're going to have to deal with it.
Yes,
that's
yes.
our
Really the hard
job.
part. Yeah.
That's our job.
Well,
And I miss my students. I do. I really do miss them. And I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go work. I've done started businesses and I've tried to advance businesses, all this stuff while I've been at home, and picked up a radio show. And so, well, COVID's been good to me, but I'm not joking. I'm of the adjusting of the disease, but during this time, I've used my time wisely, but there are some serious. You're right. So we know that some kiddos are going to have these issues,
and they're going to fall through the cracks. I mean, like you mentioned, a student that is a general ed kid, because
they're quiet, children, they're not going to act out.
But special ed has, there are extra adults around. It's those kids that are internalizers that may be. Maybe the GT kid or just a regular good student that is not accustomed to emotional turmoil at this level. And so, because it really, you're looking at anxiety, you're looking at fear, you're looking at a lot of different frustration, a lot of different emotions that they're not accustomed to feeling. And then, especially associated with school and achievement, because there's nowhere you can go to school and learn when you're anxious or you're fearful, because your brain doesn't work like that. You're in a different part of your brain. You can't logically learn. And so it's going to be very difficult for everyone.
And they're talking about STAR tests again, that it won't count for 5th grade and 8th grade, but yet the school is still going to be accountable. How in the world is that fair?
And I'll be honest, I'm frustrated with the decision to go forward with the STAR testing this coming year. I'm not a big fan of the STAR tests anyway, because we spend way too many days on benchmarks and those tests. It's a lot of wasted days that could be spent on instruction. But the bigger thing is the amount of money we spend when we could be putting that to use in a better way. So
can I say what you do, what else you do? And I forgot all about that. Your extracurriculars with Texas. Can I bring that up?
Which part? I let myself put too many irons in the fire. So which part are we talking about?
Well, you've been appointed to some different boards, right? Can I say that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Melissa and I actually met. I was about 4 years ago. I was ranting on Facebook about the state of our, and she inboxed me and became my friend through Facebook. So that's a true story. You really do meet friends on Facebook. Come to find out, Melissa, after she friends me and everything, this girl was appointed to, within this 4 years, has been appointed to different boards by the governor. Oh, wow. The great state of Texas. And so she actually would call me sometimes when she sat on this school finance. That's public knowledge. You can see it look it up. She sat on the school finance board. Okay. So she sees where the money's going and gets to protest. And she actually, fights for us, behind the scenes. She's making waves, in Austin when we're working. She's still a teacher, but she goes and fights for some of the things. And, and if I have an issue, I will, call her first and just see. And so you do a lot. And I'm sorry I didn't bring that up before. You said, so you know what you're talking about and you know what they're talking about.
Well, when I sat on the Public School Finance Commission, it was a lot of information, and yes, I continued to be in the classroom at that time, and it was truly like trying to get a drink of water from a fire hydrant. I mean, it was like full force, and a lot of public school teachers really have no idea. A lot of our administrators have no idea about public school finance, the system. It's incredibly complicated. And, when we did make a recommendation for that last legislative session, and they, got some things done that were pretty exciting. But yeah, I mean, there's still things that are frustrating. One of the things that I'm really frustrated about is TRS Active Care. Super frustrated about the insurance, and I'm not even on that insurance. the teachers in our state have to suffer under that, and I'm on my husband's insurance. Because he works for a private company here where we live, and so I'm blessed to be on his insurance. But when I see how other public school teachers are crushed in that, I mean, it's just amazing to me how expensive the premiums are and the deductibles.
Yes, it is.
And it really infuriates me that that's been allowed. A lot of people don't necessarily understand that TRS system. And it's something that needs to be addressed. We should not continue to tolerate that.
Right. I think we should be getting, better benefits, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Because I think college professors, and I know at some state colleges that their insurance just for themselves, not for their family, but for themselves is taken care of. And so, we're all public servants here. We're all public servants in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that our backs should be broken trying to keep our family insured. And then, a few years ago, we were having to pay for other people's insurance, as well. And so that was a whole monster in itself as well.
Mm-hmm.
We could barely afford our insurance, but we were paying for other people's insurance.
Mm.
Yeah, it's something. It's not right to do it. To do that to teachers. And when I say that, like I said, I'm really speaking up for all my colleagues across the state because, my husband, is able to take care of that through his work, and that's something that does need to be addressed. It needs to be fixed. But another thing that really does need to be pushed back are the STAR testing.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any. I do believe that. We should have a test at the end of the year.
Yeah, we should be accountable.
Right. And it needs to measure growth for each student. But that even includes, just like I was talking about how, I'm very blessed to have a daughter that is really smart. And, even if she gets, say, commended, and then the next year, she were to get commended again, well, it still needs to show growth. Mm-hmm. So I think, that we need to be measuring the growth of students to make sure, that everyone's, being held accountable. I do believe in accountability, but I don't think that we need to, the students and the teachers both, we don't need to be smothered with it. So
especially this year going back, because we really don't know how this thing is going to turn out. We don't know if it's going to keep going. I'm thinking that by now it seems like everybody should have had it. I'm just, just kind of, that it seems like it should have already swept everywhere it needed to sweep. But, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But
well, my husband and I joke with our daughter. He keeps saying that he's already had it. He's just determined he's already had it, and she just rolls around. And then I tell her that I say, well,
I think I have it. I believe it.
My blood is typo, so I can't get it anyway. And I just make jokes with her because there's been such a study about that.
Hold on, back up. Yeah, what do you mean about typo? What you talking about?
Yeah.
What you talking about, Willis?
I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's even a legitimate study. You know how we've had so many things just come at us from every angle.
You just making stuff up. You trying to make one of those Facebook posts, one of those fake news stories.
There were a couple of studies that talked about that, but it wasn't anything big, and it was definitely not a for sure thing. But I just to tease my daughter, I cling to it, and I'm like, I'm typo. I can't get it anyway. She just rolls her eyes at us.
At least it'll be a confession anyway.
Right. I know my daughter is a senior. She's going to graduate in December. One of my oldest is.
Oh, good thing it wasn't this year.
Well, so she's a little worried about going back, as well as what's going to happen when she does graduate. Mm-hmm. What's the job market's going to look like, and what her future holds. And she's, her idea is, I want to start my life, and what does that mean for me? It's such a hard time in our history.
It's crazy. I mean, you remember, how we always say, where were you when 9/11? We're gonna be like, what were you doing? Right. 2020 Corona. Mm-hmm. We did nothing. We were stuck in the house.
Mm-hmm. And
I think I've lived through enough historical events. I think we need more.
Right. My youngest daughter is going to be finished with her program in, I believe it's November, and so they're going to be finishing up, looking to move forward at a time where there's not a lot of movement.
Wow.
So, we just have to wait and just see how this all turns out. But I just think that
the nice thing, I'm at an age where I've just kind of discovered that this too shall pass. and we just, have to just kind of maintain our faith and realize that everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna work out. There are things that I'm fearful about, but I just sometimes have to just really shift my eyes up and remind myself that he's still in control. He has a plan. His plan's good. And, and that kind of brings me back down. And am I allowed to quote scripture on here?
Yes, this is a Christian radio station. Go for it, girl. Blast me. Blast me with it.
Well, and I mean, the verse that just always helps me so much is Isaiah 26:3, because, if we keep our eyes fixed on God, then he's going to keep us in perfect peace. And I just oftentimes forget to fix my eyes on him, and I let myself get focused on all this other stuff, and it does. It causes, chaos, and it causes me to get angry or feel, disheartened or frustrated or whatever. And when I do say, okay, Melissa, knock it off. Look, focus your eyes, fix your eyes on God, and he does every time that promise. Every time it works. It's just my responsibility to remember to keep my eyes fixed on him. And so that's what I want to just really encourage all of us to do, because even in the education system, if we just remember to stay focused on him, then that's going to help us. I've been really frustrated with not getting to go back face to face. I've been real frustrated with the county.
I know, because I feel like I know I make myself to be more important than I am, but I feel like my students need me. I feel like they need me, or maybe I need them. I don't know what it is, but I and I do worry about them. I really do, and if one comes to mind, I like to believe that I stop and cry out to God for them, for their safety and everything. Like I said, I took this, there was fear, there was frustration with this whole thing. And so, like I said, I took the time to grow my business. And so, to grow my business. And when it was time to work with students, I did, and it's unprecedented right now. And so people keep talking about the new normal. No, I will fight. I will be all kinds of crazy on Facebook. They would have to call me into the school office and sit me down and say, Dr. Hodge,
Stop.
Not even calm down. Stop. And so, I don't want this to be the new normal. And so we got about 8 minutes left. And so what do we want to take away from today? We didn't get any questions.
It's a good idea. It's
sometimes
a good thing to think about.
questions.
I think to really remain open and remember that the data that we see on TV, when we glue ourselves to the television, is not always accurate. Right. And let's not make decisions out of fear. Let's try to make decisions based on data when we can find accurate data. And just not move forward in fear. Let's keep the main thing, which is educating our students and taking care of the families. I mean, this is what we're in this profession for, is to provide a service to the kids and their families. And so we need to keep that in mind as we move forward.
Talk about the CPI component that talks about things that happen before that affects behavior. Before, can you pull that up out of your
the antecedent behaviors?
Not antecedent, but
pre-existing. No.
Oh boy, I just put us all on the spot. Hey, Melissa, how you doing?
It's, I know what it is. It's coming to me.
So, CPI? Are you talking about CPI training?
Yes. And so we've both been church trainers. She's a trainer.
I used to try to train anymore, but there's a word it's not coming to me. But it means that the student comes to school with these precursors of things that have already happened, and I can't think of that word.
Remember how you talking? We talked this week, and you were talking about how these behaviors that we see sometimes they're stacked on top of each other. Can you explain that for a little bit?
So it's basically the idea that traumatic experiences, depending on how many traumatic experiences you've had or you've endured, the more you have, the worse that your not worse, the larger your inability to cope is. For instance, if you have, let's say, domestic violence, and then there's poverty, there's no food at home, then there's maybe you've been molested, or there are other issues. Those are called ACEs. That's adverse childhood experiences. And what happens is the more ACEs you have, it affects your educational outcome. And a lot of times kids that may have suffered a severe trauma, they may look like the ADHD kid, they may be bipolar, and it's other underlying mental health. It turns into mental health issues that we have to deal with at school. And so even if it doesn't turn into mental health issues, you still have to deal with managing your emotions based on all that trauma.
Right.
So that's where
it's like us
difficult.
telling a teacher or trying to punish or give consequences to a student that doesn't have a pencil when their parents can't afford a pencil.
Exactly.
You know, they may get food stamps, and food stamps don't come with cash, you know.
Or maybe they get food stamps or they get assistance, but the parents are doing drugs. I mean, there are a lot of I'm not saying every parent's on drugs, but we have a big drug problem. We have to look at the families that we serve in realistic terms. I'm in a Title I school district, and all the things that come with Title I school districts is what I deal with. So if you close your eyes to the reality of the environment that the kid comes from, you'll never be able to service that kid correctly because you won't have the eyes for that kid. And so most of the kids that are very, very difficult are the ones that have the most adversities in their backgrounds.
Right. And we need to remember that. And I understand it gets frustrating as an educator because our job is to teach. Well, actually, my job is to help change behavior. But to teach after I get past the behavior, then I get to teach. But if you can't, you have to solve the stuff that's on the surface, you know, deal with the issues before you can get to the teaching part in some cases. And so I don't know.
A lot of people don't understand how, you know, she was talking about those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, how they literally, you know, change the synapses in a kiddo's brain, and it can cause that overactive limbic system. And, you know, sometimes it's not that they're intentionally trying to act out or become violent or become, you know, hateful with their language, but, you know, sometimes it's from more or less living in a home that has truly caused even some PTSD. So, you know, that's something we've got to have compassion. Now they have to obviously have consequences because we have to, you know, help them through that, but we have to do it with love and compassion, and, you know, and be real careful about, you know, the discipline versus punishment, because we need to be able to check our own motives. You know, are we disciplining or are we just punishing? And what is what's the true outcome that we're trying to accomplish? And, you know, I really admire you ladies for working with, you know, the kiddos that have severe behavior issues, because, you know, that's not been, you know, my specialty by any means, working with the gen ed kids, you know, and so I think it takes all kinds that, you know, schools just need all of us, and I'm just glad that, you know, your district has y'all.
I want to say thank you very much. I want to say thank you so much. But I do want to, you said something that made me think. When you said discipline and punishment, a lot of people think those two things are the same.
Right.
And punishment is punishment. Discipline has the component of the reteaching part. When you provide discipline, you want to me, it means you're explaining the behavior, you're explaining the reasons why you can't do certain things, and then you're providing a consequence. A consequence isn't always a punishment. It could be natural consequences, you know?
Right. Well, those tend to be more productive, too.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, ladies, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank you, Melissa. I will post the information of the teachers, what do you call it, Melissa?
Innovative Teachers of Texas, ittexas.org.
Okay, well, we're going to end today. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this out. Share it out on all. This is good stuff. Please share. Thank you, Chari.
You're so welcome.
Shara Burnett. Thank you. And y'all have a good afternoon. And I'll see you next Tuesday here at Rhema Word Radio 101.5. Rhema Gospel Radio. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Bye, y'all. Y'all have a good week. And Tyra is going to have a talking to you after this session. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's funny.
Thank you for tuning in to the Parenting Connections radio broadcast with Dr. Tyra Hodge.
Don't fire me.
We hope something was said to enlighten and strengthen you and your family.